The Hoop Heads Podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Hey Hoopheads! Wanted to take a minute to shout out our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market, and they truly accelerate skill development faster than ever. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads Podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Also, make sure to check out the new Dr. Dish Home Machine. Visit drdishbasketball.com for details. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Travis Schwab, head men's basketball coach at Muskingum University, and you're listening to the Hoopheads Podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering new subscribers 10% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code SAVE10 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its play bank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball.
Coaches, do you have a point guard or leader you're going to be counting on next season to run the show for you? Don't leave next season to chance. Thousands of coaches send their players to a point guard college camp each summer to learn to think the game, lead a team, and run the show. Your players will be smarter, better leaders, and better equipped to foster a championship culture next season in practice and in your locker room. I've seen firsthand how PGC camps have had a huge impact on players and coaches that I know, both on and off the court. You can go to pgcbasketball.com to find a 5-day, 4-night camp near you. That's pgcbasketball.com.
Matt's one of the best coaches I've been around. He's going to be a future Division I head coach, I promise you. And I think a lot of people are like, how do I become a college coach? There's no one path to what you said. I kept saying to myself, wouldn't it be nice to worry about basketball all day?
Welcome to episode 4 of our Hoopheads podcast series called Mentality with Dwayne Killings, season 1 at UAlbany. The series will document Dwayne's first year as the head men's basketball coach at the University at Albany. We plan to record and release 2 to 4 episodes per month with Dwayne and/or players, coaches, administrators, media members, and others associated with the Great Danes basketball program to get an inside look at what being a first-year head coach at the Division I level is all about. If you're looking to improve your coaching, please consider joining the Hoopheads Mentorship Program. We believe that having a mentor is the best way to maximize your potential and become a transformational coach. By matching you up with one of our experienced mentors, you'll develop a one-on-one relationship that will help your coaching, your team, your program, and your mindset. The Hoopheads Mentorship Program delivers mentoring services to basketball coaches at all levels through our team of experienced head coaches. Find out more at hoopheadspod.com or shoot me an email directly, mike@hoopheadspod.com. Our roster of shows is growing, so don't forget to check out all our other podcasts on the Hoopheads Pod Network, including Thrive with Trevor Huffman, Beyond the Ball, the CoachMaze.com podcast, Players Court, Bleachers and Boards, The Green Light, Courtside Culture, and our team-focused NBA pods, Cavaliers Central, Knuck If You Buck, 305 Culture, #Lakers, Motor City Hoops, X's and O's NBA Breakdown, Spanning the Spurs, LA Hoops, The Wizards Hoops Analyst, Lakers Fast Break, At the Buzzer, and Daily Thunder. We're looking for more NBA podcasters interested in hosting their own shows centered on a particular team. Email us info@hoopheadspod.com if you're interested in learning more and bringing your talent to our network. Today we're diving in with UAlbany Director of Ops Danny Mads and Assistant Coach Matt Griffin. We'll learn more about their coaching journeys and what brought them to the staff at the University at Albany to work for Head Coach Dwayne Killings. Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Klinsing here without my co-host Jason Sunkel this morning, but I am pleased to be joined by two members of the staff at University at Albany with Dwayne Killings, Dan Madhavapallil and Matt Griffin. Guys, welcome to the Hoop Heads Pod.
Great to be here, Mike. And that was an awesome pronunciation of my last name.
All right, well,
That's
good. I'm glad.
unbelievable.
There was a lot of pressure on me. We had to do a second take, but we got through it. So we're good.
Great execution. Great start to the podcast. Really excited to be here, Mike. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for being here, guys. So what we want to do today is just kind of get to know you guys, get to know a little bit about what brought you here to the University at Albany, and then what you guys are hoping to accomplish and how you're going to contribute to the success of the program. So Dan, we'll start with you. Just give me an idea of your background, where you came from, your connection to Coach Killings, and then we'll dive into that and talk a little, see if we can't bring out some things that'll help some other coaches that are out there listening.
Yeah, first of all, Mike, appreciate you, giving us this platform, obviously for young coaches and coaches in general to learn and to grow. And there's a term that says, people say grow the game, and you are a big part of that. And so I just want to say thank you for doing that.
Appreciate it.
Of course. And then, so I guess a little bit about me. So I guess it all starts with my parents, right? My parents, about 30 years ago, came from India. That typical immigrant story of, they literally came here with a suitcase. Like my dad sold suitcases in India and he came here and brought those suitcases with him, and they made something of their lives. Saved money, did that. They grew up in Chicago at the time when Jordan was taking over. So basketball, was important for them because of Michael Jordan. And because of that, that's how I got into basketball, got into hoops. And then, played high school basketball, was good enough just to be a varsity athlete. And that's probably about it. Averaged probably 2 points a game, but I was a great cheering on my teammates and all that stuff. And was blessed to be team captain and do all that stuff. So, knew wanted coach, had an unbelievable coach in high school named Bob Ward. Had an unbelievable impact on my life. And I knew right away I wanted to have that same impact on kids, when I grew up. So, and after that, knew being a student manager was probably a really good position to kind of get my foot in the door and to build relationships. And at that time, it got down to between Marquette and Michigan State, obviously. But at that time, both schools had great basketball programs, great coaches, and Buzz Williams and Tom Izzo. And then actually just one random night, an admissions counselor from Marquette called and it was, hey, do you have any questions? And I jokingly asked, oh, hey, do you have Buzz Williams' email? Not expecting anything of it. And she was like, oh, of course. So she gave me Buzz's email. I sent Coach Williams, an email. So I'll do whatever it takes. Just want to be part of this program. He read it, and actually he read it forward to one of his assistants, Brad Autry, and we went back and forth, came up for an interview. And that's how I kind of got the student manager position at Marquette. And actually, because of that, every email I get, whether it's a potential walk-on manager, like I read it because I know, what that means. And because Coach Williams read that email, I have my shot, and I'm here right now. And so that's, that is important to me. And so obviously I was with Coach Williams for 2 years. We met, at an Elite Eight run, which was unbelievable my freshman year. And it was just nuts because I was like, oh, this is normal.
Right. Yeah. Hey, we'll do this every year, right?
Yeah, of course. And then, we go through coaching change, and then it took a while for us, when Coach Wojcik took over, obviously kept me on as student manager, which I'm grateful for. I got to see the rebuild of a program, which is unbelievable. And Coach Wojciechowski gave me a lot of responsibilities, and then eventually hired me on as a GA, and then got lucky enough where after 2 years as a GA, he created a position for me. It was assistant video coordinator, and in a time when a lot of places were cutting positions. And to be, I'm so grateful for, number one, to be at a place where we could do that, and then to be around people that would want to help me out. So did that for a year, and then got promoted to director of basketball operations at Marquette. So did that for the past 2 years, and I tell people that sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and most importantly too is to surround yourself with really good people as best as you can. And I've been really blessed, from my parents to my high school coaches, to my college coaches, to be around some unbelievable people that have really helped me grow. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, there's no doubt that those connections make a huge role in what you end up having the opportunity to do in your career. How'd your role change from your first year as a freshman student manager to the end of your time there as director of basketball ops? How did the responsibilities, the level of your level of involvement, how did that change over the course of your time at Marquette?
There's a term that some people use, and whenever people say, "What's your title?" I pretty much just say DFE. And do freaking everything. And you can, that F word could be something else, you can change that if you want.
Understood.
and it's one of those things that I think from a student manager role, whether it's rebounding to laundry, and to the do everything part of it, like there are times like I would go and I'd help our athletic trainer redo his roof. I'd babysit kids, I'd dog sit, like that, all that stuff is really important to building relationships and building trust. And so I try to keep that student manager mindset kind of throughout my journey. And then obviously kind of as you grow in this business, you have to be more mindful of what you say yes and no to. And sometimes saying no to certain things is really beneficial because, your time is valuable, and that delegating, is huge. And I'll say this, I'm still learning that, how do you, going from the GA to an operations role, it's way different. It's way different being the guy that does everything and then being the guy that manages people that does everything. A manager is totally different because you're a leader. You can't just do everything yourself. And, asking people to do things without acting like you're just bossing people around. It's
right.
It's
That's
different.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough. And then also trying to develop that trust and relationship and relationship is huge. Because you don't want to go to academics or compliance every time you need something. Right. Because then you're just going to be that guy. I think for me, it was really important to I think there's a term, leadership by walking around and wandering around. I would literally, in my ops role, go to our strength coach, go to our athletic training room, go to compliance, go to academics, and just say hi, see how you're doing, because that's important. And you actually, Coach Judson, who worked together at Marquette, he said some of the best meetings and most productive meetings happen in the hallway.
Yeah.
And those meetings that are on your calendar, they're good and all, but sometimes you just need to pop in and check in on people and see how they're doing, and then they're more willing to help you when you need it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I mean, I think that there's a lot of good lessons in there. I think the biggest one being, especially when you're earlier in your career, you got to do what you got to do and what people need you to do and fill in those gaps, and not only do what they ask, but also maybe go above and beyond and look for ways that you can add value. And we've heard that sort of that theme from a lot of young coaches that we've had on, just saying, hey, you got to put the time in, you got to do some of these things that maybe don't necessarily fit under the strict job description of what you're trying to do. But those are all things that help you to build relationships and really cement the fact that, hey, I'm a guy with a great work ethic. I'm a guy who's bought into the program. I'm a guy who's here for the greater good and not just kind of looking out for myself. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So again, interesting. I'll tell you one quick thing before we jump over to Matt. When I was playing, I never, ever in my life looked at a student manager as somebody who was going down the coaching profession track. It never once as a player crossed my mind. I always thought that, these guys, they just like being around the team. They like hoops, man. They want to hang out with some of the, they want to hang out with us players. Never in my life did it cross my mind that any of those guys were doing that because they wanted to coach. And I look back on it now and I'm like, how do you not realize that? Just again, you think about,
if you wanted to coach and you're right there with the coaching staff all the time, and you're on road trips and you're on the bus and you're at practice and you're involved. And, again, obviously it depends on how much the coaching staff kind of takes you under their wing. But it's amazing to me that looking back when I was 21, 22 years old, that I didn't realize at all that, guys that were managers for our team back in college, that they were, that they were interested in coaching. And a lot of the guys that we had, I don't know if any of them went into college coaching, but a lot of them became high school coaches, and just never crossed my mind that was the path that they were taking. So kudos to you for knowing what your path was early in life and getting it done. Matt, give us your story. Talk to us a little bit about your background, and you can start. I know you were a player at BU, and how you got into coaching, and just where your passion for coaching the game came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm super excited to be on here. I've listened to so many podcasts. I can't tell you, especially, from last quarantine to now, this was amazing. I've learned so much through your podcast. So it's really an honor to be on. Where I started was I played for Coach Killings at Boston U. My junior year, we won the American East Championship. Pat Chambers was the head coach at the time. My senior year, Joe Jones became the head coach. Coach Killings went back to Temple in a promotional position. And from there, when my senior year ended, I didn't know that I really wanted to coach. I had studied business in school, and my dad had retired early from coaching because of the demands of the job. He had a 7-year contract at St. Joe's starting in the 1990s. He retired in 95. And because of, it really wore on his health, and, it was just an exhausting job. And so, and also in his mind, it just wasn't a great lifestyle. And so I grew up in the game. I grew up in the gyms, played basketball my whole life. My lifelong dream was to play Division I basketball. And I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity. So when I graduated, I was like, what do I do now? And I realized I was so fortunate for the opportunity to go to Boston U, to play Division I basketball, to have parents who guided me in the right direction in life, and especially my older brother, who really pushed me and was always a great mentor. I said, I want to give back. So I applied to this program called Teach for America, and they place young professionals with really no background in teaching. I had a finance degree in one of the lowest performing school districts in the country. And you can get placed anywhere. And then they train you for 6 weeks during the summer. You teach summer school. And then during that it's a 2-year commitment. You go to, you can do a partnership in whatever city with the university. So to get your master's degree in education. So that's what I did. I was in the south coast of Massachusetts, teaching 7th grade math, where Chris Herron grew up, Fall River. And, it was a wonderful experience. I fell in love with coaching, not necessarily just basketball. I coached the 6th, 7th, 8th grade team there. I coached flag football, soccer. I didn't know anything about soccer. I ran the chess club, and I loved it. And I fell in love with it. And it became a passion of mine to be around and inspire young people. I didn't think it was necessarily basketball that it had to be. I thought I could do it through math. I thought I could teach the habits needed to be successful in life through math. Like, hey, work hard. Hey, get to class on time, get your work done. Push through on days that you're tired. Things like that were really important to me, helped me in my life. I wanted to inspire somebody else, try to give that to them. And it was a really rewarding experience, really challenging. And so when I decided I wanted to move back home to Philadelphia, I called Speedy Morris, who was my high school coach. And he said, listen, you got a spot with me, be my assistant. So I worked for him 2 years in an assistant coaching, more player development role. I was teaching in North Philadelphia. And, really, it's after my first year with Speedy, the Haverford School position opened up. I applied to be the head coach. I was in the top, couple, and I didn't get it. In the second year, Roman Catholic high school position opened up, and that's where my dad went to school. It's where Speedy Morris, my high school coach, went to school. Had a lot of tradition there. They were our rivals in high school, so I knew a lot about the school. And I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to be the coach there. And it's funny, I thought I knew the game, and I thought I knew how to coach. And I thought I knew how to run a practice. And until I became the coach And then it was like, I call it a PhD in learning, like in coaching, because over the next 5 years, I was challenged every day to become a better coach for my players. And along the way, I had a lot of coaching development opportunities. I coached with USA Basketball for the last 2 years, which was incredible. You're in a room with Mike Jones from DeMatha, Steve Turner from Gonzaga, Joe Montagna from Belair, and the list goes on. Scott Fitch, is up here in New York. And it's just like you sit around the room, you listen to these guys coaching from all over, Marshall Cho, from Portland, and, Eric Flannery from Ohio, and you listen to how they develop programs and how they teach and how they coach and their concepts, and they go through the same things that I do. And I learned so much from them. So over the last 5 years, really through just experience figuring it out, relying a lot on my dad and my brother to help me become a better coach every day. And I had a great coaching staff, and I was able to really learn how to become a better coach. And still learning, obviously, but Coach Killings and I had stayed in touch from the time that I played for him, going full circle. So and we actually became really close when he was back in Temple and I was back teaching in North Philadelphia, and our relationship really grew. And we always would send each other motivational things, keep each other going, especially when times weren't going well. I think it's easy to like, hey, good job, good win. I see you on national television, good win. But hey, I also know DK, and on those days when they lost, I know he was taking it as hard as the head coach. So I was like, hey, stay with it. But we always kind of vibed in that way. And I was fortunate enough that he wanted to bring me on in his first coaching opportunity. So that's how I'm here.
It's interesting that you guys sort of came to the coaching profession in different ways. So, Danny, here you are saying from the time you get done with high school, you had a plan, you knew you wanted to be in coaching. And then Matt, your path was more similar to mine, where when I was playing, coaching was not on my radar at all. I was not a kid who was diagramming plays and dreaming about someday picking up a clipboard when I was done playing. I was a player, and I was not thinking at all about being a coach. And then when I got my first coaching job, and I've told this story before, like the only thing I knew, I played for the same high school coach for 4 years, and I played for the same college coach for 4 years. And so that was everything that we did was from those two guys. All the drills, everything. And I'm like, oh, I was a good player. I know what I'm doing. And unlike you, Matt, I kind of stayed in my bubble for a while and didn't necessarily go out and have the opportunities to learn from other guys, and kind of stayed there. And part of me wishes, if I had gone back and maybe done it differently, or had somebody that took me under their wing and said, hey, you need to get out and get to clinics and do these things. I was just kind of, doing my thing, like, hey, basketball has always been a part of my life, and, I must be pretty good at this thing. And you realize very quickly that there's so much out there. And the podcast, and again, I'm 51 years old, and the podcast has taught me so much about the game, both from, some X's and O's, but more just about how do you build a program? How do you build a winning culture? How do you put things together so that it makes sense for your players, and you put that environment in place so they can have success? And it's just, again, I find it to be so interesting that almost everybody we talk to falls into one of those two camps. Somebody who's in third grade and they're playing, but they're also drawing plays on a napkin. And then there's other people, and then there's other people who get done with their playing career, and they look around and they're like, oh man, basketball's over for me. How do I stay in the game? And I think most people fall into one of those two camps, in all honesty.
Yeah. Mike, two things. One is, when I was a coach, DK gave me this amazing advice, and he said, listen, you're a high school coach. You're going to be welcomed into really any gym in the area. So right. I was in Center City, Philadelphia. We had really good players. And I took advantage of the opportunity. I got a chance. I sat in on Coach Dunphy's practices multiple times, Coach McKee's. I went to Zach Spiker's practices. I went to Jay Wright's practices. I went to Phil Martelli's. I went to Billy Lang's. I went to John Giannini's. I went to Ash Howard. So I was able to watch how they do it. And that really also helped me, besides the coaching clinics that we paid, for to go with our staffs every year, and the Zooms and the podcast, that was really, transformative for me as a coach to really be in their gym. How do they start practice? What's their pregame routine? What's the energy level like? Some coaches like to put on music, some don't. Some have an emphasis on defense, some start with skill work. It's what's the flow of practice? These little things. And then how often does the practice stop? How many times does this assistant talk and this assistant talk? And really, what's the command, the coaching moves of the coach during practice? Is it a lot of scrimmaging or is it a lot of breakdown? It was incredible. And then you would go to like Fran Dunphy's practice, and then on the sideline would be like Billy Hahn, yep. And he's telling you about like the 1-3-1 zone that he used to put in. And it was just like, my mind was blown. So that was really the first thing. And then the second thing, just to piggyback on that, when all I ever cared about in college, and this is probably to my detriment, is how do I become the best player I could be? And I was so passionate about basketball that you're right. I had that same feeling when we lost. We got upset in the America East tournament my senior year against Hartford. John Gallagher, still there, beat us. And I literally remember sitting in my dorm room in March saying, like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I just was just basketball and that's it. So I share that same sentiment.
Yeah. Try to figure out with something that you've spent so much time with as a player and you've been so focused on it. It's difficult. It's difficult to change gears and say, all right, now I'm going to do X, Y, or Z and figure it out. And I got a business degree and I ended up going back to school to get into education because, again, I just wanted to be around the game. And I was a kid who, when I went to school, I had no idea what I wanted to do because I wanted to be a basketball player. There was no, there was no, I was a good student, but there was no plan B. I never had a job growing up. I didn't work at McDonald's or nothing. My summer job was maybe going to be a counselor at a camp, but that was just, getting in there so I could play at night. It was nothing about a career or anything. And I think it's hard to make that change. And, like I said, there's so many people who fall into one of those two camps for sure.
Hey, hoopheads, we all hate ankle sprains and they happen way too often. Ankle injuries are the #1 sports-related injury. Arise is trying to change that. With the iFast, your athletes get preventative protection and full mobility. Athletes no longer need to wear bulky braces that limit performance and give mediocre protection. Anyone playing sports should be using these products. Keep your athletes in the game. Don't wait for them to get hurt to take action. Visit www.arise.com/team pricing to learn more. That's ARYSE.com.
All right, Danny, talk to us about how the opportunity here comes to be. Obviously, during your time at Marquette, you build a relationship with Dwayne, and what made you decide that this was a good opportunity for you to come along to UAlbany?
Well, actually, before that, I do want to hop on. So, like, Matt's one of the best coaches I've been around, and he's going to be a future Division I head coach. I promise you. And I think one of the reasons why he's got like unbelievable experience running practices and doing it in his own, like doing that in high school. And I think a lot of people are like, how do I become a college coach? There's no one path to what you said. And I think that doing that high school route, he's got coaching, it's easy for him to run practices and run drills now because he's done it, and he's done it in front of some big time coaches watching him because of their, when they come into the gym. So I think like Matt Griffin is unbelievable. I just have to put that out there because that's very important.
All right.
Thanks,
good.
Danny.
That's good. That's good. I like it. And there is something to be said for that when you talk about being in charge versus being an assistant. We all know that there are differences. And as you look through and you go through your career, I was a varsity assistant coach at the high school level for a long time, probably for 10 years. And then one year our JV coach had to leave the program right before the season was going to start. And so I took over, kind of was in a dual role. And all of a sudden I was back to managing a practice and trying to sub during games. I was like, what is this? Like, I haven't had to do any of this. I haven't had to do any of this for like 10 years. And even though obviously I was coaching, it was still a totally different feel. So I think that's a good point, Danny, that, you know, when you talk about having some experience, we don't necessarily always equate high school coaching as a path to getting into college coaching, but there's certainly something to be said for that opportunity to be in charge and to make those decisions as you move forward, to have that piece of experience in your back pocket. I'm sure as you move forward, that's going to be, you know, that's going to be something that's going to be an asset that you're going to be able to point back to and draw on as you go through your college coaching career for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So Danny, talk to us about the opportunity here.
Yeah, so I've known Coach Killings for 3 years now, and in that 3 years, he's grown to be one of my best friends in college basketball. And so actually, you know, and I think it's important to talk about kind of the whole journey of how I got here, because it's been a wild about 2 months, and so, and because I think it's very real. I think people need to understand, you know, all of it. And so, March 19th is when our administration at Marquette had told us that they were going to let go of Coach Wojo. And obviously it was a wild day, you know, like, because we get that information. Now we're calling our recruits' parents, our current players, their parents, and then add to the fact that my fiance is at work. Now I need to call my fiance too, because we're getting married in July in Milwaukee. And it's like, wait, what does all this mean? Because like all this, like, because I called her, I want to say probably 11:30, and it hit social media at like 11:45, and then so like everyone at work is now asking her, you know, about what's going on, and so like our phones are blowing up, and everyone's like, "What does this mean?" And to be honest, none of us know. And so like it was a wild day, obviously, and I was blessed enough where they said, "Hey, like we want to try to keep you on. At least we want to have you be here for that transition period." And so I was grateful for that, because you know, that's an important time. And it was good to, you know, be there for our student athletes. But I also know that when a new coach comes in, most of the time they're going to bring in their own people. And so all these conversations we're having are going on Friday, and keep my head is spinning at least. And I'm just trying to make sure that our kids are good, because that's the most important thing. And then, you know, Coach Killings calls me Friday night, and he says, "Hey, you know, I want to bring you on here." And then I'm like, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Like, I was part of a staff that was let go, but then now I have a job. Like, I'm like, what does all this mean? And so I'm like, I'm ready to just like to pack my bags and go to Albany. But then he's like, wait, just hold on, take your time, talk to your fiance. And I'm like, that's probably a good idea.
Probably a good idea. That's probably a good move, short term and long term.
Exactly. And my fiance Caitlin has been unbelievable. She has her dream job right now. She's a PT in Children's Hospital in Milwaukee, and I'm the guy asking her to move out with me and to kind of uproot her life too. And she's been supportive all the way. And I think, you know, for young coaches that are trying to get in this business, like having you know, a partner that is all in and actually understands that journey is really important. And I think, you know, and the people that have that understand. And, you know, I think in talking to my fiance, it's like, hey, like, are you ready to do this? And I guess the answer, to be honest, is no. Are we ready? No, like we're not. But are we going to figure it out, and are we going to make the time to figure it out and learn? Yes. And that's the only thing I can ask. And that was important. And so she was all in on the move. You know, she's back in Milwaukee. So she's preparing for the wedding. I have no idea what's going on. Coach Killings actually called her to make sure that she was okay with it. And she said, just make sure he's at the altar on July 9th. And I was like, oh, and
so you're learning how to delegate, man. This is your lesson on learning how to delegate. You're just like, hey, take care of that whole thing. You got it.
Yeah, exactly. So she's doing all that. So I'm really excited. And you know, and Coach Killings flew back to Milwaukee Sunday and took me out to dinner and officially offered me the job. And so that's kind of how I got here. And we made the 13-hour drive from Milwaukee to Albany. to bring his car over here, and and then kind of never look back. So I'm really blessed. I've fallen in love with this place. I've fallen in love with the people. I'm sure you guys, we're living in Empire Commons, which is the dorms right on campus. So we're all we've gotten so close so quickly, and I think that's one of the reasons we're literally spending all day with each other.
Yeah.
And so it's like a summer camp feel. And so it's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool. How long till you get your household set up? What's your ETA on your household getting set up?
Ooh, that's a great point. See, now I got to get my fiance a job out here.
All right.
Got to get pre-approved and got to, got to find. We're trying to find a house. We're trying to take advantage of these interest rates and show the Albany community that we're all in.
Nice. All right, Matt, give me your story. First of all, I guess the biggest question for me is the transition from high school to college. In terms of, was it something that you knew you always wanted to do? And then just talk to me a little bit about what the difference has been so far in those two experiences.
Yes. So people have always asked me, and I've had conversations with other high school coaches, hey, what's next? And I honestly, I always thought, college is next, but I never had any ambition to make a jump to college immediately. I had worked at Roman Catholic for 5 years. I had been in education for almost 9 years. And, I was just going to do the best job at Roman that I could. And we actually had a really good team coming back. The entire team's coming back next year. I think the Roman Catholic's going to be a really, really good team. It just so happened that, in basketball, the way I see it is, timing and relationships, right? And just so happened that this was the right time, for me to make the transition. So the transition from high school to college has been, I thought I kind of understood what college coaches went through in terms of, as a high school coach, I'm seeing these players. I'm like, well, why hasn't this college offered this kid, or why isn't, but you realize that they, their pool of players is there's 100 players that they're looking at for 3 spots, and each assistant is, bringing a player to the table. So it's not just so straightforward. So that's one of the adjustments. The other one is the actual rules. As a high school coach, I could work my players out. We were in before school. We were in late at night. We were all summer long. We didn't really have those restrictions in terms of individual skill development. And in college, it's much different. The rules and regulations, even with social media and how you handle that, certainly there are some rules and regulations in high school, but the binder of rules for college is I had to take a recruiting test and it's pretty serious. So that's the other major adjustment. And that's real because, you're dealing with compliance on a daily basis and making sure you're staying within the lines of doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so, really learning that at the highest level that I can, but those two things have been the major adjustments. But other than that, I've always dreamed, I kept saying to myself, wouldn't it be nice to worry about basketball all day? And that's what I get to do, which is really cool. Last year, I was the athletic director. I taught 5 classes of Algebra 2, and then I got to coach, for 2 hours. So, and then I had to find time at night to scout and this or early in the morning. So it was now I wake up, I'm like, okay, skill development, recruiting, and I can't, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't get any better.
It's all all basketball, all basketball.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So each of you, I don't know who wants to go first, but just tell us a little bit about what your role has been so far, what you think it's going to be moving forward to try to help this program get it to where you guys want it to go. Danny, why don't you take that one first?
DFE, baby. DFE. No, it's been awesome. So I guess for me, I think relationships are a huge part of Coach Killings and the mentality that he's bringing to this university. And it's important to connect campus. because there's people here that love basketball and care for this university. And so it's really connecting the dots of, all right, who do we need to talk to about certain events? And I think community engagement is huge. Like, we're doing tons of camps. We're trying to work on a 5K. We're doing all these chalk talks, that, we're, to your point, trying to grow the game and give back. Football tailgates. There's just all these stuff that we're trying to do. But then me coming here from the Midwest, it's like, who do I talk to? Like, how do I get all this done? And so it's trying to get to know all these people, trying to connect the dots. And then also, I think the most important thing is our student athletes. How can we best help their experience? How can we better their eating, their eating habits, their sleeping habits? Can we get them gym access more? I think all of that's really important, because ultimately, like I think Coach Matt said this, is like we have to focus on basketball all day, but then even within that, the most important thing is our student athletes, and those guys ultimately put their trust in us, and so we need to help them grow as basketball players, but then as men as well.
Great answer, Danny.
Hey, coaches, parents, and group leaders. I want to introduce you to our newest sponsor, SnapRaise. SnapRaise is the nation's largest digital donation platform built to help teams, youth groups, and clubs raise money quickly and efficiently without selling products. SnapRaise builds your group a customizable campaign website, and students use their mobile devices to connect and engage with their biggest fans. My son's high school team used SnapRaise this season, and our team raised all the money they needed to fund their season, and then some. Getting SnapRaise started is quick and free. Just visit snapraise.com and you'll get connected to a local SnapRaise expert in no time.
Matt, go ahead.
So Coach Killings kind of assigned me, the task of learning admissions and the process of when a student athlete wants to come to University at Albany, now what? So whether it's a graduate transfer, a transfer, or a incoming freshman, learning the process, making sure I understand, from their transcripts, what courses have they taken, how does that translate to the University at Albany, getting feedback from our admissions, relaying it back to the students so they can really apply for the thing that makes sense for them. So that's one of my major roles on staff. And I love that, because I've been in education, and I think that's so important. It's a vital part of this whole thing of playing college basketball. It's just not about basketball. It's really about, creating a network for yourself by getting to know your professors, and then hopefully studying something that you're interested in. And like you and I studied business, I got into education, but at the same time, learning something that's interesting and, something that you're going to be intellectually stimulated by. So, and then the second thing is just recruiting. So, and Coach has given us a couple areas to focus on. And we are each kind of assigned with bringing certain players to the table to discuss amongst the staff. And we have a recruiting process that we follow. So, but those are the two major things. And I guess the last thing would be skill development, in that area, and really helping guys develop, see what their skill set is, help, strengthen their weaknesses and turn their strengths, I call it, into weapons. But so really focusing on how can we create an elite skill development program.
Great stuff.
And then, I think we all say this, like, high major isn't where you are, it's who you are. And so it's important for us, like how we do everything is at a high major level, but then also understanding that we don't necessarily have the resources of a Power 5 school. So, it's all of our jobs to figure that out, and we need to be creative with how we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. I think when you start looking at what you can do at a mid-major school, it's really important to be able to try to build that winning culture and to be able to put things in place where you don't have endless resources. It's not like you can make a mistake and, hey, we spend $500,000 here on something. Oh, it didn't work out. Well, that's too bad. We'll just spend another $500,000 over here. It doesn't work that way, at this level. And you got to make sure that everything that you do is on point and it's leading towards what you guys are trying to build and the success that you want to have, and making sure that the program and your kids are taken care of, and that you're putting out a product that the university is going to be proud of, and that all of you guys sitting here in the Zoom today are going to be proud of. And I know that Danton and KJ just jumped on. So Danny and Matt, we appreciate you two guys joining us. Before we get out with the two of you, I don't know if either one of you want to share how people can reach out to you directly. If you want to give yourself a quick shout out on social media where people can find you after they listen to the podcast, and then we'll let you guys go and bring in the next round.
Well, Mike, thanks for having us. This is awesome. And my Instagram handle is Coach Matt Griff. And so it's same with Twitter. So same thing.
Cool.
So
all right.
thank you very much for having us.
You got it, man.
Mike.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. My Twitter is at Coach Danny Mads, and Instagram is just Danny Mads 12. So appreciate you. Thank you so much. And again, like what you're doing is unbelievable. I've learned a ton, and it's been a blessing to be on this podcast. Well,
thanks, man. I appreciate it. And it means a lot to me that all of you guys are taking the time out of your lives and your schedules to jump on and to be a part of this. And obviously thanks to Dwayne for kind of opening up the program to let me step in kind of behind the curtain and see what it takes to have the kind of success that I know you guys are destined to have. So thanks, guys. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.